Welcome back to Just Saying, where real stories meet real growth. Today we're diving into something that's part science, part philosophy, and all about understanding what makes people tick. My guest today is Jim Marshall, the author of Septemic, Hierarchy of Human Phenomena, a book that's been called centuries ahead of its time. He's not just a thinker, he's a discoverer, someone who's mapped out 7 levels that explain nearly every aspect of human behavior and progress. If you've ever asked yourself why some people seem stuck while others thrive, or why understanding human nature feels so complicated, this episode will give you a language for all of it. So let's decode ourselves together. Hey friends, welcome back. I'm here with Jim Marshall, and he's an author of a unique book that I'm super interested in learning more about. So welcome to the show, Jim. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks, Jess. Glad to be here.
So, so you have a book, right? And it's called, let me see if I got the name correct. I practiced this ahead of time, so I'm sure I'm going to get it wrong now. But damn it. You tell me the name of the book, because I know Septemics. And I kept saying it before we aired because I was asking you, because I was trying to make, but my little blonde brain. So, Septemics, Hierarchies of Human Phenomenon, right? Phenomena. Okay. Did I say that? Okay, good. Tell me, well, before we get into that, let me ask you. So you describe, what do you describe? What is Septemics?
Okay,
as a natural phenomenon.
Before I'll do that, but let me just say one sentence to give some context to the discussion. I am the discoverer of hitherto unknown natural phenomena.
So this wasn't even out there before you discovered it, basically.
That's right.
Okay.
The tiny bits and pieces of it were out, fragments of it, but as a holistic unit, no, it didn't exist. So I discovered these phenomena, from which I crafted a workable philosophic system called Septemics, and published it in the book Septemics, Hierarchies of Human Phenomena. Septemics is a philosophical science based on the fact that many phenomena related to humans occur in a sequence of 7 levels. Literally, the word Septemics means of or pertaining to 7. Septemics comprises a collection of scales or sequences, each of which breaks down various human phenomena into a hierarchy of 7 steps. There are 35 such scales, each of which is unique, and between them, they span the spectrum of human experience, by which I mean any difficulty, problem, dilemma, situation that any person has regarding people can successfully be analyzed by one or more of these scales, usually more than one. And once you can analyze it, that enables you to predict what's going to occur. And once you can predict, then it facilitates management of it.
Give me an example of what you would analyze in somebody or about somebody, or...
Okay.
What does that mean?
Okay. So like, for example, there's a scale of motivation. People are always interested in motivation, right? Some guy comes up to you and starts talking to you, and you're immediately thinking, why is this guy talking to me? Does he need money? Does he need a jump start for his car? Is he looking for a date? Right? You're looking for a motivation. That's how the police solve crimes. They look for someone with a motive.
Right.
So if there's a burglary, right, and $500 worth of stuff is taken, well, if you got a guy who's got $1 million, he's not a suspect. He has no motive.
Well,
so that's one of the 35 scales, right?
Okay.
So this is something that, as soon as you know it, you're going to use it. I don't have to tell you to use it. So let's say you've been dating some guy for 3 years, and you're talking about getting married. Well, that's a big step. Wouldn't it make sense to ask, why does this guy want to marry me? I mean, isn't that a reasonable question? I'm not saying to ask the guy.
I mean, I think people think that too, but they just don't want to ask because What if they don't get the right answer or that
I'm
person
not
doesn't know
saying
how
to
to
ask the
explain?
guy.
Right.
Don't ask the guy.
Yeah, and don't do it.
Open the book. If
Okay.
you've been dating him for 3 years, you know all about this guy.
Yeah.
Oh, and you have to realize you're always selecting from a menu of only 7. This is not hard to do.
So your book teaches people how to use your steps or the scales?
Yes.
Okay. And so is that the premise of the book? Oh, so it explains it, and then it shows you how to utilize it, or
Yes.
how to so that you can so in what ways are I'm probably skipping way ahead of all my questions because I'm really curious. So, but in what ways can you apply this in well, I mean you kind of gave an example like the police. They look for people with motives, or what, why would somebody, who would be the person that would want to do this? But in what other ways can your book and your application be applied, or your scales be applied applicably?
Let me say this. If you live 5,000 years, you will still be using this book because you're going to meet new people and new situations are going to arise. And uh, different contexts apply. Like you can ask, well, what is my husband's motivation? That's one context. Then you can ask, what is my mother's motivation? See, that's a completely different context. You're going to get a different answer, right? So you could use that one scale that way hundreds and hundreds of times. And you could also reverse the vector and say, what's my motive toward Joe? What's my motive toward my pastor, et cetera, et cetera? And use it again another 500 times. Now, here's the key. Every time you correctly find the answer to the question, what level is the person at? You have a realization. So let's say you have a mother-in-law who drives you nuts, right? Common problem. So you say, I wonder where she is on the scale of control. She's always controlling us, you know? So you study the scale of control. You know the woman. As soon as you study that chapter, you're going to spot her. Ah, I see. She's at level 6. That explains. At that instant, your relationship with her just got better because you understand her now. She's
Right.
at that level. There's nothing she can do about that unless she reads the book and then wants to move herself up to a higher level. But right now, it's just like, a butterfly is a certain color. Some of them are black and some of them are orange. That's it.
So your book is meant to understand people better and to, right,
Yes,
and would open up communication for sure, because
absolutely.
you understand the other person and know the place where they're at, because sometimes you don't know what someone's going through unless you're walking in their shoes or you understand where their mindset is. And so that's really interesting. So how long has your book been out, if you don't mind me asking?
It's been out about 3.5 years.
Okay. And is it being utilized in the way that it should? Is it reaching the right people? I mean, I'm just curious.
Well, that's hard for me to know. Some guy in Australia probably just bought a copy of this. I'm never going to know him. I don't know what he's doing. He's just got the book. Now, if he follows the instructions in the book, it will be the best investment he ever made in his life.
Can
His
can
life
this be
will
applied
blossom.
for like salespeople too, and like this might be a good tool for, like, yeah, for a sales team to maybe have. That would be a good Christmas present. Christmas is, well, Christmas, by the time this airs it'll be past Christmas, but it is a good Christmas present, to, or a white elephant present. That's something that they'll actually be able to use and utilize. I don't know if you know what a white elephant is, but anyways, that's I'm so interested. I'm actually pulled myself totally off my questions because I'm just really, I want to know a little bit more. What are you not telling me that I need to know? Because I'm like excited about your book now. Like, this is a book I need to have. Might help me in podcasting and reading
Okay.
people. Like yesterday, I had a gentleman. Well, I'm not going to say when, but I had a gentleman and he was quite off putting. But I was able to see that he was uncomfortable in some way, and I made a couple jokes, and he eased into the whole situation, and then he's like, "Okay, let's get started." And I was like, "Okay." And he had a good time. I could tell. He even said that was great. But
So
I
let
kind of
let
go ahead.
let me give you an actual situation from my life, okay? I'm a single guy. So about a year ago, I met this gorgeous blonde. She looked like a movie star in every way. So she was very interested in me, and now we're going through the normal getting to know you stuff. You know, you have conversations about, what kind of movies do you like? What kind of books do you read? What kind of restaurants do you go to? Blah, 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 right? So so initially, obviously, we were both very optimistic about this. So we start having these conversations. So we're having this conversation, and I noticed that she was low on a certain scale. I didn't say anything, but I observed it. So then later we had another conversation, and I noticed she was low on another scale. Again, I just made a mental note. Then we had another conversation, and I noticed she was low on another scale. Now a pattern is forming. This is a downscale person, because if a person is low on 3 scales in that, uh, simpler context, he's probably gonna be low on a whole bunch of other ones. This person is going to be a problem.
So it's a red flag.
Yes.
It gave you
So
some
what?
red flags. Okay.
All of our interactions were extremely congenial. There were no arguments, there were no insults, there were no disagreements, nothing like that. It was all very, but I could see this because I know this material. And I just said to her, "Pass. No thanks." And
Swipe right.
she was absolutely shocked, visibly shocked.
Well, you
And
know
she
why?
said, and
Because
she
she's putting on a show for you.
she said to me, and I quote, "Who do you think you are?" And I did not give her the perfect answer, which is, "I'm the guy who knows Septemics." Because she would have no idea what I'm talking about. So so I saved myself a lot of irritation by making that calculation.
Can I ask you a question? Do you think that's why you're single? No, don't take offense to this, but do you think you're single because you're relying on your book and you guys sometimes go on your feeling, a better feeling than put all that beside you. And sometimes, like my husband, let me just say, 28 years together, he is not the man I thought I would be with. He probably had a lot of things not perfect about him that I would, and I did. I used to always say, baggage I don't want to carry. I don't want this. I don't want a man that's like that. I have to have a guy that's tall. I've got to do this. Finally, I put that all behind me and I said, I'm going to consciously try to put myself out there and be, open to other people. And I loved everything about him. There was a few things I didn't like. And I just said, you know what? The things that I like outweigh the things that I don't. And so, and then, 28 years later, we're still together and he's my best friend. But I'm just saying, like, you got to open yourself up sometimes and can't be so rigid because you got to find your person that you want to grow old with. And I'm not trying to lecture you because I probably am not the right person for that. But I'm just saying, got to open yourself up. But I do see that
Let
where
me
you
ask you something.
yes, she has
If
a lot of red flags. I get it. And then wouldn't want to move forward. But
if
sometimes
I
you got to
did if I don't open myself up, as you say, using your terminology, what are
okay,
you gonna do about it?
what am I going to do about it? Nothing. No, but I feel for people. I'm not an empath, but I do feel pain. If somebody falls down and I see it, I'm like, I feel it in my body. But I
What,
do.
do I look like an unhappy person to you?
No, you really don't. You actually look like a positive person, a very
Yes.
positive, happy person. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm a very, very, you have no idea how positive and happy I am. My life just goes along swimmingly.
Well, I'm not saying
Always look.
that you need a partner in your life to make you happy, and I wasn't trying to put you down. I'm just saying as a girl, sometimes you have to look. I mean, I have a lot of flaws, trust me. And I'm sure my husband probably thought she ain't the girl I was going to marry. I thought I was going to marry size 2, and that's not what he got. But I'm just saying sometimes you have to kind of bypass some of the flaws because sometimes the other parts outweigh the bad parts. But I totally got off on a tangent and I'm using your book to talk dating techniques, and I haven't dated in 30 years, so I'm probably not the person to opine on that. So
You
uh,
have to see, you see, it also works the other way. It works as far as deciding who you want in your life. It's not only negative. So, for example, I've been in Arizona now 10 and a half years. About 6 months into being here, I met a person. We had a conference, and I could tell in our first discussion that this was an upscale person. It was undeniable. This person was high on the scale in many ways. And I could see right then, this is somebody I want in my life. This person is going to be an asset to me, and I'm still in connection with that person, and it's been great all the way. So it gives you the up and it gives you the down, both.
yeah, can I ask you a question? Could she be on the down scale? Not this person you're talking, but the person you went on a date with. And I'm still going back to that, so please forgive me. But could she be on the down scale for you, and you be on the upscale for her? Or would she have the same outlook, her using the same techniques? Does that make sense? If
Let
you're
me
both
explain.
using the
Let me,
techniques, then you're both on two different sides.
let
And
me
you're saying
explain it to
she's
you.
like, okay.
Let me explain it to you. Every human being is at some level on every scale. The question is not, is this person on the scale? The question is, what level is the person at
Okay, yeah.
on every scale? Okay. This is not an opinion. It's like a chrysanthemum and a rose. Every chrysanthemum is unique. Every rose is unique, but I can always tell the difference between a chrysanthemum and a rose because I know flowers. So look, if you were to invite me to your garden to view it, because you know that I like gardening, I show up at Jessica's house and I'm going to say, oh, she has hydrangeas, forget me nots, tulips, roses, irises, begonias. Now, the reason I can say that is I know a lot about flowers. Okay. Now, if you bring some 5-year-old girl into your garden, she's going to see and smell exactly what I saw and smelled. But all she can say is, these
Flowers.
are pretty and they smell nice.
Yeah.
Now, most adults are like that little girl about people. They don't know what they're looking at. They don't know a chrysanthemum from a rose. They don't have the concept. They don't know what a hydrangea is. So, Friday night, guy goes out to a bar to meet a girl, right? So he sees a young lady and she's very nicely dressed. She speaks nicely and he associates with her. And he sort of thinks, well, she's pretty and she smells nice. I think I'll ask for her number. Well, that's the same thing the little girl just said about your flowers, isn't it? It's the same thing. They're pretty and they smell nice. That guy knows as much about that woman as that little girl knew about your garden, which is very little.
Just that they're pretty.
For me. So whatever happens, he is at the mercy of the forces. Now, when I was a young person, this material didn't exist. I hadn't discovered it yet. And so I made the same stupid mistakes that everybody else makes. Now, knowing this material upside down, inside out, and backwards, having worked on it for most of my life, for me, that does not happen, cannot happen, will not happen.
How did you discover it though? Like, you started like noting things and then decided that you were going to study it, or how did you come about like just discovering, if you don't mind me asking?
Sure. The story really begins when I was accepted into engineering school at age 16. Now, of course, I thought at the time that I was going to be engineering physical things such as airfoils and motors and gears and electrons. But By the time I had my bachelor's degree, it was clear to me that I wanted to engineer the human psyche because it is the area of greatest unknown, of greatest mystery, and more importantly, it is the area in which we as a race are failing miserably. 95% of the problems in industrialized society are because people don't understand people. Don't understand the wife, don't understand the daughter, don't understand the cousin, don't understand the boss. This is a gigantic problem for everyone.
Do you think, and I never talk about politics on my show at all, but do you think that that has a lot to do with how Democrats and Republicans don't really understand each other at all?
Absolutely.
And how there's so much invite or fighting,
That's
amongst both parties.
that's right.
Mm.
Well, to finish answering your question, this business about not understanding people. More than 50% of the marriages in the United States end in divorce. Clearly, those people did not know what they were looking at. If they did, they either would have said, "This lady is not the girl for me," moved on, or they would have lived happily ever after, which is definitely not what's happening.
No.
Okay, so this book solves that problem across 35 axes.
So it would help
Meaning,
with marriages
absolutely.
or with finding your mate,
Yes,
with finding the right person. What happens
yes.
if you take the scale on your husband and you find out that he's not he's not the right guy? No, I'm just teasing. I would never do that, but you know what I'm saying. I'm just making
Well,
a joke.
yeah, I can answer that question, but I'm still trying to answer your previous question, which is, how did I come up with this?
Yes.
So, to make a long story short, I had a long career as a human development engineer using engineering tactics, engineering strategies, engineering devices, engineering principles, engineering approaches to help individuals to attain higher levels of equanimity, responsibility, ethics, enlightenment, etc., depending on what the person wanted. All of my clients benefited from our interaction. But incidentally, I started to notice that I could predict the outcome of the session. As an engineer, this told me there's something predictive in here
Hmm.
because I'm predicting it. I didn't tell anybody,
Yeah,
but I
you're
have
not Kreskin. You don't know, you don't know what's going to happen, but for some reason you do. Because, like you said,
yes,
you have a mind. You see, the thing is, engineers have a problem solving brain, and you were able to break it all down into a formula or
right,
a scale,
right.
basically.
So let me finish answering the
Mm.
question.
Okay, I'm sorry. I keep doing that to you.
So
I'm so sorry.
I never told anybody that I was figuring out that I was anticipating the outcome of the session, but I made notes.
Hmm.
And as the decades roll by, I just accrued this information. And it became patently obvious to me that the client would be at a specific level on a specific scale that I had previously observed and recorded. And as a result of our interaction, he would go up to the next level on that scale. Now, that happened many thousands of times over a 40-year period. I'm guessing, but maybe 8,000, 9,000 times, something like that. We're talking about a lot of data here. Sometimes it would happen 4 or 5 times in the same session. So you have to realize that uh, looking at it from a scientific point of view, the clients had no idea whatsoever how I was doing what I was doing, what I was thinking, what theories I was operating on, what kind of biofeedback I was seeing on the meter they were connected to. They knew nothing. All they knew is they came to me with a problem or an unwanted condition, and they said, "Can you help me with this?" And I said, "Yes." And I did. So this is extremely reliable information because there's no placebo effect and there's no power of suggestion. I was just seeing what happened and writing it down.
Anecdotally, you were taking notes and
Right.
and applying. previous findings to try to help people, and then that gave you another finding, and
Right.
you connected all the dots and were able to come up with the formula over 40 or that's a really long time. That's
Right.
like a research project for like ever. You
Right.
know what I mean?
We have to realize after I would see the phenomenon in session, I'd go outside the session, like to the bank or Walmart, and watch some people and I would see exactly the same phenomenon in people that I didn't even know. I didn't even talk to. They didn't even know who I was. There it was. Same phenomenon.
Did you scale me when you were first talking to me?
No, because I only met you a few minutes ago.
Okay, I'm just
My
messing.
attention is not on that.
I know, I'm just messing with you.
Answering your question. So,
Okay.
so by 1995, I had about 32 scales that I had simply observed and recorded. There's no theory of septemics. None. This is just observational. So, around the same time, one day I was pondering a difficult client, and I had this 6-level scale that I had been using for decades that I knew was correct. And I was trying to assess her against this scale. And I was having a tough time. I couldn't get an answer. Then I realized, there's a 7th level. This person is at a level that I had never observed before. And as soon as I saw what it was, I understood it and I knew where it fitted in the scale. That was not a question. And as soon as I inserted this 7th level into the 6th level scale, at that exact moment, that scale went from being a line, which is what a scale is, to a plane, meaning a whole body of data. And all of these intersecting, interacting, interlocking mathematical data jumped out at me about this scale. I said, whoa, I found something here. This is full of math. Now, you have to realize I took 26 semesters of math and loved every minute of it. So I have the mind of a mathematician. This is a very real thing to me. So when I'm observing things like a rabbit running by or clouds moving in the sky, I'm seeing formulae in my head. Okay.
Ones and zeros.
Well, it's not necessarily ones and zeros, but whatever the numbers are,
Math, so that's all I can think of is ones and zeros. I'm
yeah,
thinking,
I know the formula. So that's how scientists and engineers are. So when I saw that, I said, whatever this is, it has to be natural law because it has mathematics embedded in it. And anything that has mathematics embedded in it is natural law. Like, for
can I ask you a
example, the
question?
Fibonacci sequence.
Can I ask you a question? So if it's if it's by how do you say that? Binorm I can't even say the word. If it's made up of numbers, or at least you can break it down into numbers. So is it more of like a concrete scale, like if there's no give or take on this scale, or is there
None.
wiggle room? There's
There's no
just no.
give or take.
Okay, so it's
No
like a
give.
concrete, like what you're seeing is what that is.
That's right. Right. It's just like Newton's 3 laws of motion. They're not debatable. You might not know what they are and you might not understand them, but all of us in the physics community know they are axiomatically true. And and astrophysicists and rocket scientists are still using them to this day to predict the movement of bodies through space. Okay? They are they are inherently true, or like the Pythagorean theorem. Okay? It was true before Earth existed, and it will still be true after Earth no longer exists because it's built into the fabric of the universe.
I think I had to learn that in my infinite math class. That's hard. That's a hard formula to like. That's not easy. Math is not easy. I can't believe you took so many math courses, but you have a brain for that. You are an engineer type person, and I'm kind of curious on like where does your scale, how does it differ from like traditional philosophy and like psychology?
I'll be
Mm.
happy to answer that question, but I'm still trying to answer your original question, which is how did I get this?
Okay, keep going. I'm so sorry. I thought
Okay,
we meant that.
so so
Keep unpacking.
when I discovered this first scale,
Okay.
I said, then my next thought was, which is very typical of an engineer's mind, I wonder how many of these other scales are also 7-level scales that hadn't been developed all the way, which is what had happened with this. It hadn't been developed all the way. So I had not seen the mathematical flowering of it yet. So knowing what I was looking for, I then studied all the other scales. And in a short period of time, each of them went to 7 levels. And when it did, it manifested mathematically. So now I had 32 7-level scales, each of which had mathematics embedded in it about natural phenomena. And having gone to school for 28 years, I said to myself, I never saw anything like this. This looks like a new subject to me.
Could you create a course out of this? I'm sorry, I keep asking you all these questions. I told you I'm really excited to learn more about this. So finish your question, and then we'll get to my other
Yeah. Okay,
questions.
so then I had this date, and I said, wait a minute, I could go from helping people by the hundreds, which is what I had been doing as human development engineer, to helping them by the millions if I put this in a book and get it out so the people of Earth can have it. So I'm going to have to write a book. First draft of the book was finished in December of 95, and I immediately sent it out in a transcript form to colleagues of mine, excuse me, all of whom had graduate degrees in a variety of subjects. And they all loved it. They had differing responses, but distinctly enthusiastic responses. And that told me that this was exactly what I thought it was, which is a new subject that people would get. Now, I have to realize this is 30 years ago. So some version of this book has existed now for 30 years. In all the 30 years, right, I've been promoting this and discussing this, blah, 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 clients, and no one has ever said to me, this doesn't make any sense. I don't get this. That's not what they say. So a guy opens the book, right? Takes it off the shelf, has no idea what it is, opens it up, looks at it. At first blush, he'll say something like, oh, yeah, this makes sense. Like, remember the first time you saw the periodic table of elements?
Like
You
what?
probably were 12 or 13 or 14 years old, right? And when you first looked at it, it's a little overwhelming because it's big, it's got a lot of data. But it doesn't take long to figure out that this thing makes sense. Hydrogen is 1, helium is 2, lithium is 3, blah, blah, blah. It goes down horizontally and vertically. When Dmitri Mendeleev first constructed it, we only knew about 79 elements. Now we've got about 50 more, and they keep fitting them in. You know why? The paradigm works. So several people have said to me, what book is your book like? And I have to tell them in all candor, having gone to school for 28 years, I never saw anything like this. I don't think there's another book like this, at least on Earth. Maybe somebody else on another planet has it, but not on Earth. But what I can tell you is this. Each one of these 35 scales is expressed in what you could call a table or a spreadsheet, which is very similar to the periodic table of elements.
Right.
Except instead of it being for matter, it's for these 35 corresponding subjects of human phenomena. And at this point, I should tell you what those subjects are. And
Let's
you'll
get to
see,
that. Hold on one second. Let me ask a question. Okay, let me ask you two questions because kind of in line with your schooling and everything. Couldn't this be, and wouldn't you try to make this, because this sounds like this can be a full-on course, like in
sure,
college, or you can put this into a subject. How does that, I mean, I don't know how it's possible, but how do you push a subject on academia? You know?
first of all, that would be a fool's errand.
Okay.
Secondly, that's why I'm talking to you.
I
To
know.
get it
It's
out
so
there.
true. But it
To get
just
it out
feels
there.
like this. I just feel like this should be like everyone should be. First of all, everybody should be getting the book. Let's just say,
Right.
but I'm just saying that, like, I mean, it's almost like you want to scream it from the rooftops. Like, dude, this is going to help you in every asset, like every aspect of your life, in relationships, in work, in business, with your children. Um, your neighbor, like it's like so much in my podcasting with all the different types of people that I meet. I mean, I'm getting your book, just saying. Okay. And the other question,
So let me tell you something from history to give you a frame of reference to what you just referenced. We have the heliocentric theory, which posits that the Earth rotates around the sun. Now, this is generally dated from about 500 years ago, Copernicus, early astronomer, and it's often called the Copernican theory. And of course, Galileo, who was a contemporary of Copernicus, one of the great geniuses of all time and one of the most famous people in Italy in his day, he saw this right away and he tried to explain it to people. And he spent the rest of his life under house arrest for propounding heliocentric theory. Look it up. Now, most people don't know that the heliocentric theory was originally propounded by a Greek named Aristarchus of Samos, 300 BC. So it took 1,800 years for that phenomenon to come into the mainstream.
so you're saying like 300 years from now, people are going to go, oh, Marshall knew it all. Right?
Let me give you another example.
Well,
Let me
first
give
of
you
all, you're going to be the man that discovered it. They're going to go, yeah, man. Jim discovered it. Let's just say what in 2000 or 1995, or when was it? Like, did you after it came to fruition? Like after you did all of your data, would you say that at the end of all of that is where you just decided this is it, or were you using it throughout? And so its conception date was much earlier than that. Does that make sense?
as I said earlier, this data presented itself in the work I did with my clients.
Yeah.
And every time it did, I noted it. And every time that came up again, I had that datum.
So what I'm asking you is, I mean, this is such a silly question, but would you say that at the end of all of your analysis is when the conception of it started, or would you say that you basically named it and called it, and we're using it throughout to gather the data? Does that make sense?
That's not what happened. First of all, the last thing that happened was giving it a name. Because when I was ready to publish, I said, I have to call it something, and I came up with Septemics. That
Okay,
was only a couple of months before it was published. Uh, but uh, I was garnering this information all along
right,
and developing it into useful data. Needless to say, it only made me better at what I did.
right, and you're having success rates, and that's why word of mouth. You probably were very popular because people hear from other people that you helped them,
That's
and
right.
so then other people were coming in. You were probably a very busy person. If
Yes.
you were, yeah, totally.
People would I worked for different companies and people would like if I would leave the company, they'd leave and follow me because they wanted to work with me.
They're
Uh,
Jerry Maguire you out the window. Can I ask you a question? What's the difference between like the psychology or traditional psychology and philosophy when it comes to septemics? If I said it correctly.
Septemics is a completely separate subject.
Okay.
I tried for years to fit it into the context of some other subject. It cannot be done. It's like trying to get an elephant into a Volkswagen.
Good
It's
analysis.
not it's not a form of
Apples and
psychology.
oranges.
It's not a form. It's a philosophical science. Okay, that's what it is, and it is its own thing. And I'm just giving you natural data, just like Fibonacci did. Fibonacci was this great Italian mathematician, and he saw that there are these numbers that appear in nature. Like if you take a sunflower and you count the seeds, you count them one way, you'll get a certain number. And if you count them another way, you'll get another number. Well, these two numbers were part of this collection of numbers that he was looking into. Why does this keep coming up? Why does this number keep coming up? And there are all of these creatures. Pine cones are the same way. So there are lots of creatures in nature that are constructed according to Fibonacci numbers, which is observable and undeniable. And he got the idea there has to be something, there has to be some formula behind this. And he figured it out and gave it to us. And that's what we call the Fibonacci sequence. So I did essentially the same thing. I just looked at this data. I said, there's something here. There's something behind this. This is not random.
Have you ever asked for like, I mean, I know that you published a book and you've used it in practice. Has anyone that you known come up behind you and say and use it in practice or in like a similar type of?
Yes,
Yeah,
there are people
that's
all over the world using this book.
that's amazing. I mean, it is amazing. Okay, so let's get to the 7 levels. Okay, so explain what these 7 levels represent, if you don't mind.
Okay, so first I should tell you, as I said earlier, every scale is unique. You cannot learn anything about scale A by studying scale B. Nothing. But they have in common that each one has 7 levels, which is why it's called septemics, because septem in Latin means 7. So that is just the reality of it. Just like if you look at the periodic table, there's such a thing as a period. Like sodium and potassium are in the same vertical line. And so they have very similar properties, and you can replace them in your body. You can get your body to get rid of sodium by taking potassium because it has the same charge and it's very similar. See, it's just like one tiny little application in chemistry. And that is what this is like. In other words, uh, there's no opinion in this. I don't give people my opinions. People ask me my opinions, and I'm reluctant to give them, especially with my clients. Guy says, "You think I should stay with this woman?" I say, "Well, what do you think?" That's my job. What do you think? See? And then to steer him into it, which is a very complicated thing, which I'm not going to try to explain now. But but as far as septemics, uh, it is a new technical subject. And it is, I know axiomatically that these scales are correct. The same way I know that the 3 laws of motion are correct. And you're going to say, well, was Newton infallible? Probably not. But he figured out the 3 laws of motion. I understand the theory of relativity very well. Okay? Einstein came up with it. And there are reasons why he came up with it and nobody else did. And I could explain it if you want. But it was the same process. Okay? He came up with it and he had a hard time getting people to accept it. To this date, there are physicists who do not accept the theory of relativity.
That's
Go
crazy.
figure.
Yeah, I
Well,
mean, just because you're in our century doesn't mean that you can't have a discovery of something and it not be an accurate, depiction of science. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Just because this wasn't centuries ago or wasn't something that's in the books. I mean, the whole reason why we go to school is so that we can open up our minds and discover or create things. I mean, that's why do you go to school? For knowledge and that's what I think. I mean, I feel like I'm a creator because I am a creative person, but I am an entrepreneur, and I like to start things. I like to create things. I don't necessarily like to run things, but I like to start businesses. But I'm just saying, you go to school for the knowledge to, create, and you just created something from experience and anecdotal. Ooh, I got a little fly coming around, but anecdotal, taking notes of your clients over a long period of time. I mean, that is some serious research right there. So I kind of feel like, everybody gets a bad rap when they're like, oh yeah, he created something new, but I feel like, well, that's what we're here to do. Like, what I'm saying? We didn't know anything about, Elon Musk's cars until he started creating them.
That's
and
right.
I have a fly that just won't stop bothering me.
If
It's
you
just very
study the history of science, which I have done at great length, you'll see that the pattern was like Louis Pasteur, who discovered germs, he was ridiculed.
yeah.
They just said, "This guy's nuts. These tiny things we can't see that cause illness. It it's caused by evil spirits," you know? That's the norm. My favorite absurdity is is Harvey, Dr. Harvey, who is the guy who figured out how the circulation in the body actually works, an Englishman. And, he presented it, and one doctor was heard to have said, they were using the theory of Dr. Galen from the 2nd century at that time, which is completely wrong. And the doctor said, "I would rather err with Galen than be right with Harvey." And that's pretty much what goes on Earth,
Right.
you know? So that is the norm. Now look, Jesus came here 2,000 years ago, and he taught us how to behave. This is how to behave. This is how you should act. Who learned that? Very few people. I can tell you, I had a Christian education. I had many priests who were friends of mine. Uh, Not only did the non-Christians not learn it, most of the Christians didn't learn it. They
Well,
do
we're all
not
sinners.
they do not behave the way he taught us to behave. So, it's 2,000 years now, okay? So, people are not quick to learn, and there are technical
Or
reasons.
yeah, or changed their belief system or what they think is I don't need any more science. We've already got all of that. We're already, I already have all the book. We already have all the educational books we need. We don't need a new science that, who knows, then that we have to now go in and research for another 40 years to see if your research was correct or whatever. Or they can go through your notes or, did you preserve any of their notes for in case you had to prove your theory or you're
No,
like, no, you're just like this.
didn't preserve anything, not interested in proving anything to anybody. If you read the book, if you understand
Well,
English,
you can apply it, and that's
if
all
you
the proof's in the pudding.
understand English reasonably well,
Yeah,
and you read the book, you'll get it. This is
yeah.
not hard to get.
So
You
it's
know
not a
why?
very difficult because you're very smart, and I think if it got too wordy, my little blonde roots might not be able to absorb it. But is it easy to walk through, and you totally get it as you read it?
Well, it's a textbook on an entirely new subject, so it has to be approached the way you would approach a physics text, a chemistry text, a math text, an economics text. You start with line 1, page 1, and you read that sentence and you say, "Do I understand this? Does this make sense to me? Yeah, I get this. Okay." Then you go to line 2. You can't skip around. You can't get to say, "Well, I don't really understand this page, but I'm going to skip it." That is no way to learn STEM subjects. It
Right.
doesn't work, okay? I was an honor and scholarship student at every level, okay, and did well in every subject, so I know a lot about learning, and I brought all of that to the book to convey it in a way that the average reader of English would get, and I've been watching people get this. The first, approach they have is, "Oh, yeah, this makes sense." Then when they actually study it and learn it, at some point, a big light bulb goes on over their head, and they say, "Whoa, this is big."
Right. Like aha
Mm,
moment.
yes, this is big.
Right.
It's actually so big that I don't even try to convey how big it is, because it is a world-changing, life-changing book, and I really don't care too much about who gets it, who doesn't get it, if they like me, if they don't like me. I don't care about any of that stuff. You know, meet somebody like you. You want to interview me? Fine, I'll interview. I'll tell you what I know. The book is out there. You want to buy it? It's available hardbound, softbound, ebook. The ebook is cheap. For $10, you can change your whole life.
I mean, it's true. Can I ask you a question? How can somebody use your septemic? I'm going to always fall over that word for some reason. Don't ask me why. How can they use your scale to help to help them grow? I mean, I mean, can they help for themselves? I mean, I understand how you'll understand other people by maybe placing them on a. Can you use it to maybe for self growth?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
You, Jessica, are at some level on every scale. That data is just sitting there waiting for you to discover it. If you read it and you spot yourself, you will have an epiphany. Oh, now I see what my basic purpose is. Scale of basic purposes. When you find that it is a life-changing moment, you're never the same again because you throw out the other 6 levels that don't apply to you and you live your life with the purpose that you have. You just
You
realizing,
try to get up on the scale, try to get to 7. Is that the whole goal? Is to try to get
well,
yourself up?
well, let me explain how this is in a general way, how this is beneficial. Number 1, um, each of these 35 scales provides the reader with an infallible way of determining the salutariness or the beneficialness of any group, individual, or activity. If the group, individual, activity moves persons up the scale, it's beneficial or positive. If it moves them down, it's detrimental or negative. So I'm giving you a yardstick by which to measure human affairs, which is an entirely new thing. 2, more importantly, just finding out what level you or another person is at is inherently enlightening and beneficial. You say, "Oh, now I understand, Joe." You say, "Why couldn't I get along with Phil? We broke up 17 years ago. What was it?" And you think about, now I understand. Phil was at this level. That's why we broke up. Now you're unburdened of that and you don't go around thinking about it anymore. And then once you know the correct level, right, this is the 3rd step, you can then improve yourself or the other person by moving them up 1 level at a time.
Like applying,
Right.
making applicable um, changes in your relationships or how how you're
In
wherever you are on
yourself.
that scale. Yeah,
It
yourself.
is in yourself.
Yeah.
Now let me explain. Let's say hypothetically you're at level 4. If you read it, understand it, you will be able to get to level 3. You know why? It's the next level up. I'm telling you what the next level up is. I have solved the gradient problem that has bedeviled mankind for 6,000 years. And let me tell you what I mean by that. Most people have problems and dilemmas and difficulties in situations that they can't resolve, right? It's all over the place. Everybody has them. More than 99% of the time, it's because they don't know the gradient. In order to solve a problem, you have to know the gradient. You cannot make a couch potato into an Olympic athlete. There are too many intervening levels, right? What I did with my clients for 40 years is I would find the level the person was at, and then I would get him up to the next level. And he could get there without my telling him anything because it's the next level. If you're on the 3rd floor and you want to go to the 4th floor, it's not hard. You go up 1 set of stairs, you're there. Now, one of the axioms of this subject, it has 12 axioms. One of the axioms is you can only move to an adjacent level. It is absolutely impossible to skip a level. Now, sometimes you can go through a level quickly or easily or without noticing it, but you went through it nevertheless. But most of the time, that doesn't happen. Most of the time, you're at this level, you target yourself for the next level up, and eventually you'll get there. Now, how long it takes, what you have to do, how much effort is involved, that is a wild variable because every person is unique, every situation is unique, every scale is unique. But what I can tell you is if you are actually at level 5 and you target yourself for level 4, you will get there because it's the next level up. I'm giving you the gradients. In other words, these are 35 roadmaps for success.
So 7 being the best or the top level, or you're saying 1 is the top level?
1 is the top.
Okay, 1, okay. Because I was envisioning it the other way around, and when you just said that, I was questioning everything I was thinking. So 1 is the top level. So, once you get to the top level, what happens then? You're like, "Okay, I'm cool," or do you move on to another part of the like, 'cause there's 35 of each one has a 7 scales, right? Do you only fall into one of the categories, like, out of your 35
Every human is at some level on all
on
35
all? 'Cause
scales.
like you said, I could be on all of them. So
You
do I
are. It's not that you can't. You are.
are. I am. Okay, so let's
Well,
say,
it's like
I'm
here's
on
the
level so each
persuasion.
one I'm like a
This
f
is
okay,
this is like a blood pressure.
yeah.
You have a blood pressure. I know you have a blood pressure because 'cause you're talking to me. Okay? I don't know what it is, and that's why when you go to the doctor, it doesn't matter whether your nose is running, your ear is hurting, you have a headache, you have a sore knee, they always take your blood pressure. You know why? They know you have it, and they don't know what it is. So they take 3 minutes, and they get it, and they write it down.
Okay, so I'm trying to envision this in my mind. Okay, so I'm on all 35, and I'm at different levels on each one of them. Do you recommend, or does it really matter, or do you go through each one of the categories and try to get yourself to 1 on each one? I mean, what does it mean to be at 1? Can anybody get to 1 on all of them? Or
Here's
do you
what I'm
think
gonna
that
tell you demographically. Fewer than 1% of the population is at or near the top of all the scales.
okay.
Uh,
But
a
once you
large a
master one, are you then thinking, "I'm gonna try the next one," or not even master if I'm at a level that you want to be, let's say I'm okay with a 3, or I'm okay with being 4 or 5 or whatever on this scale, and then do you recommend, like, moving on to the next, or it just depends on what the person is wanting to do in their life probably?
Well, when you say recommend, that depends on the context. As far as using the book, here's what I would say for what I've been telling people for years. Get the book, study it the way you would study a science text, because that's what it is. Okay? Carefully. Don't go past anything. There is a glossary, not only in front of every chapter, but even in front of the introduction. So I give you the exact definition of the main words so you can have it precise. See,
Like, it's
when you get
self-explanatory, basically.
when you get to the end, go back to the beginning and read it again. And when you come to each scale, find your level on every scale. By the time you finish the second reading, you will have found your level on 35 scales, and you will be a completely different person. You would be a greatly enhanced person. Your mind would be much clearer on all of these things.
And you know what? Sometimes it takes something like this I mean, a lot of people don't know how to self reflect. And this might be a tool to help you kind of understand yourself better. Might have to read it and read it again, but then it might also, you won't have to go to therapy. You never know. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
Not that I
that's
go
right.
to therapy, but I'm not saying that it's not a good thing. Um, okay, so can I ask you a question? Because this is moving on. I mean, you're so smart, but I can probably talk to you, but I do talk in circles sometimes. You're like, we already talked about this. So, but I can talk to you forever. But um, I know this is going to be something that people are going to have forever and ever and ever. It's going to be out there forever. But what are you doing next? Is there any next move for you, or I mean,
Well, what since the book was published, I've been basically trying to get people to find out about it. There are over 1,000 different videos of me all over the internet discussing this in different ways. So if you want to really learn about this, just Google Jim Marshall Septemics, and you'll get from all of these different platforms, you'll get all of these different lectures, and in some cases talking about specific scales. And it's like a
Yeah.
whole nation on the subject.
Yeah,
Uh,
we could
but
have a whole subject on each scale. Like I could bring you on and we could have an hour's conversation about breaking it down. It's that in depth of a subject. It's a whole subject all on its own. Like I get that.
yes, that has
Yeah.
actually happened. I have one host who did a separate podcast for each scale. We did together 37 podcasts.
Wow.
37. So, one in general, and then we did one for each, and then we did one for the axioms, because the axioms aren't even in the book, but they're on my website. So I want to invite your viewers to my website, which is septemics.com, where you can see what many people have said about it, what many journalists have written about it, what the reviews are. You can read sections of the book itself. And there's even a pre-recorded audio introduction to Septemics, which you can listen to, which explains it to a new person in 15 minutes. If you do all those things, you're going to buy the book.
I'm going to do those things. Also, for those of you listening, if you go to my website, justsaying.net, and scroll down to this episode and click on Jim Marshall, it'll take you directly to his website. And I just want to say thank you so much for sharing. This has really been, I mean, I swear I could have you back on like I said, this is, to break it down, there's just so much. And I still probably have tons of questions, but I think I'm going to get your book and then I'll have you back. Then I'll tweak it a little bit smarter and have better questions for you, because I think there's a lot to be said in your book. There's a lot to learn. And this is, like you said, it's a whole subject all in its own. And I feel kind of special to have you on my podcast, because now in history, they can scroll and find you here. And so, that's amazing. And I just thank you so much for coming on. I do appreciate you.
You're welcome.
Good. Everybody out there, just remember, be kind to one another. We only live in this world together. So, be kind. All right. Our nation needs a lot of healing. So have a good night. Have a good day. Whatever it is for you, have one of those. Thank you.
Low, talking about the days we used to know. VCR tapes and dial-up tones, raising kids living with achy bones. Leather jackets and big hair days, now it's carpool lines and PTA. Neon dreams turn into schoolyard fights, but our hearts glow in retro nights. We are Gen X, living both worlds. From cassette tapes to a digital world. Parenting now with a nod to the past. The retro love we know will last. We are Gen X, living both worlds. From cassette tapes to a digital world. A nod to the past, the retro love we know will last. We dance to the beats of the boombox sound. Now bedtime stories echo all around. But deep inside, we're the mixtape kings, still fighting life with arcade dreams. A pizza slice, telling tales with a side of advice, laughing at the way it used to